Chief, quick. Will gave a great presentation, and he touched briefly on a thing called the Citizens Academy. If you wouldn't mind just going over what that is, when we can expect another one, and then do what we need as far as reserve-wise. So
sure. I want to start off first, though, about talking about... I'm sorry. Is this better? I want to start out... I was born and raised here in Lahana and Shiraw. I was a victim of crime, is why I became a police officer. So I know what it feels like. Mike Ingebret's been a victim of crime. We are not immune to crime either. We care about this community, and we are doing the best we have, or what we have with what we can do and within the law. We do care about this community, and we want to make it a better place to live. So with that said, now I'll answer Joe's question. Yes, we're going to have a Citizens Academy. That's usually, we might cut it down to 6 weeks. It's usually 12 weeks. When we do it in 12 weeks, we meet one night a week. If we cut it down to 6 weeks, we'll do 2 nights a week. You come in, there's no cost to it. You hear from different officers on different parts of their job, the SRO, reserves. Will doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to ask him to come in and give something similar to what he did there, which I think is very good. So it's a great way to inform the community. That is one way I got Mr. Mayor to listen to some of the stuff we had to say. Not to say that you didn't ever listen, but being a young guy, he come in and thought, wow, I didn't realize that's what all the stuff you have to do. Bob Benz, can you come up just a second? I don't want to embarrass Bob. We're going to talk about reserves. Bob's one of the longest serving reserves we've had in Lahana. Because of knowing Bob, he talked me into getting into reserves, and that was my start into law enforcement. Come in, volunteer. So I'm just going to have Bob talk about it in a minute, and then I'll go about an academy. So tell him about what we can use.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. What brought me to Lahana to start with was the United States Air Force. This was my first duty assignment and my last duty assignment. So I spent 20 years in the military. Part of that time, I got involved with the Lahana Police Reserves. So I spent 28 years giving up Friday nights, Saturdays, to help the community. Okay, the police reserves are a true helping hand to the police department. Not only do they ride with the officers, they can help them, doing their daily tasks. And really very rewarding to work with the citizens of Lahana and so forth. During its prime, we had anywhere from 15 to 20 reserve officers. That equates to almost doubling the force. Right now, I believe you have three reserves, and how many full-time regulars? 14?
When we're full staff, it would be 16, but we're down to like 14.
So that basically doubles the force. So that's a big helping hand for the police department. Really what we need to do, or one of the solutions that will help, is if we can get citizen involvement, people that might want to be police reserve officers. It doesn't mean you make a career out of it or anything. You do have to attend a reserve academy. The academy is fairly long. You have to qualify in various skill sets, arrest and control, firearms, driving, and so forth. But that is a way to give back to your community. And I fully support that. I think it has helped Lahana, and I think it'll help Lahana again if we can get that program going.
So they're an excellent force multiplier. Young people like me that decide, hey, I might want to make a career out of this. Mike Ingebret back there, he started out as a reserve force and became full-time. We used to have quite a few on the department that started as reserves. One of the projects we're working on is trying to hire local people that want to stay here and just don't move on. So for your reserve question, Mr. Mayor, we are trying to get an academy together, and it should start January or February. It's going to be 4 to 5 months long. In order to be considered for a reserve, you'll have to come in, take some basic aptitude tests that are required. You'll have to go get a psychological exam and a physical and a drug test. All that will be paid for by the department. Once you've passed all that, then we start the training. And it's usually a couple nights a week for 3 to 4 hours. and then quite a few weekends for your skills that Bob talked about, your firearms, your arrest control, and driving. There is no age limit on it. I don't know if any of you around here have been here long enough to remember Bob Cody. He retired at 81 years old from the reserves. You know, he was one of the very first reserves in Lahaina and the very first reserve unit. I still have a SAP that you were issued and could carry back then. We can't hit people with a SAP anymore. Those are outlawed. The one I have it just for, nostalgia.
Cassandra will start a fund to keep that going again.
Yeah. When they started the reserve program, they were better trained than the police officers. Their academy was 2 weeks long, and the police officers back then had a week of training. So, but they're a very important function to this city. A lot of bigger agencies don't like them because then they believe money, and which may be true in big cities, I don't know, money is cut from their budgets because they have volunteers helping. We need it. It helps us get people in cars on weekends. When we have our functions in town, we have to have parades and stuff like that. We get those people out there and help with traffic control. So they're a great help. When we have a big scene, they can come in and be perimeter and help us out there. One of the reserves we have now is a former police officer, so he could actually do some police work if he has to. But we try to keep him from doing that because they're not paid. So, but they are a force multiplier and they help.
And then last thing for you, Todd, is the City of Lahaina Police Department, is drugs a big deal to it?
Absolutely. Like I said, we live here. This is part of our town. Our kids go to school here. We're not like a lot of places where your officers live. I'll give you Fountain for example. Their officers can live in Pueblo, Colorado. They're not part of their community. We have one officer that lives in Rocky Ford, and the only reason we allow him to do that is because he already has a house there and family there. But the rest of ours are, Lahaina men and women, and we think that's what's going to help keep a better force here down the road.
Yeah, and I knew the answer to that question, but I want everyone to know that drugs, crime, everything is important to this police department.
Absolutely.
There's not a lax attitude. These guys are going out and protecting and serving each and every day, and their main goal is to come home to their families.
Yes.
And I respect them, and I appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry. So with that law about how individual officers can be sued personally for doing their job, I think they should be able to be sued civilly if they've done something wrong, but just for doing their job, like that Floyd case. I mean, that guy's in prison. That's where he should be. Mm-hmm. Do the officers? Is there a liability insurance company that covers officers?
There is for legal defense, but not to cover that cost. So that would be the problem. So,
but I mean, is there a policy that your individual officers can purchase themselves?
Maybe through their homeowners. I do purchase one through my homeowners, but there's nothing that I'm aware about there just for that.
Just for law enforcement?
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
And to give you an example, I'm involved in a lawsuit with 2 former officers and a former Bent County sheriff on a drug dealer we took down. He's suing us. I can't say a whole lot about it because going to court, but he's suing us personally and not even suing the city, thinking he's going to get that $25,000. It's going to be a frivolous lawsuit, and more than likely we'll win, but you still have to go through that.
Sure, yeah. Well, the stress of it.
But
I got sued in that one.
oh yeah, Will's involved too.
So, I mean, what is there like a cap of 25,000 or?
That we can be sued for, and then they can go after the city, the county.
Okay, but like the individual officers, that law changed to where it could open them up to where the individual officer could be responsible for 25,000.
Yes.
Up to. And so, like you personally, you have it on your homeowner's policy that covers that. Do the other officers know about that? There's that policy, or?
Yes, that's one of the first things we talk to them about in the academy. Number one, get your legal defense. Even if you screw up, legal defense covers you.
Yeah, and
So-
but that is that through the fraternity of brotherhood or
The
whatever
legal
it's called?
defense is through either FOP, a Fraternal Order of Police, or the Colorado Police Protective Association. Those
And
are
is
the
that
2.
something that the police department provides to its officers?
No.
Or the officer has to purchase on his own?
They purchase it on their own.
Do you have an idea of what that costs?
Depending on what amount of service they want, I think the highest is $50 or $60 a year. The lowest, 20, something like that.
Okay.
It's not.
How many officers do you have?
When we're fully staffed, we should have 16.
16?
Yeah.
How many do you have now?
Right now, we have 2 in code enforcement that will be going to the academy. So right now we're just 2 down. So we have a total of 14. But actual police officers, working the street that are certified to 12. And Mike and I are 2 of those. So we have a lot of other things we have to do as well as try to help out on the street.
Can I have just a couple of minutes?
One.
Okay, I'm not even started then. So, I got involved in this. I got experience with this in the last couple of months, and it's like I woke up in a third world country when I started having the laws explained to me and misdemeanor offenses and people publicly intox and acting like idiots and doing things. It was just, and I was a little upset. Didn't yell, didn't call anybody names, but I was a little upset, as anybody that knows me very well can imagine. What I've come out of this thing, and I did the ride along with Officer Brzezinski on a Sunday afternoon. He showed me on his little screen that they had 17,900 something calls. You can't imagine. I mean, it's a big. At least half of the job is babysitting people who ought to know better, and that's the problem. So, after my experience in this amount of time, my recommendation, I can tell you what I'm going to be doing is doubling up on my cameras, both at home and here, because essentially they don't have the time. When you start looking, they have to account for every minute that they're out patrolling around, or if they're having a conversation with somebody, they got to turn the body cam on. Then if it's an incident, they got to upload the body cam, and they got to make a report and do all that. And they're traveling all over town at the same time doing that. So it was an eye opener. So what I'm telling everybody here, and I'm not done yet, but my experience is get your cameras, get really good cameras, get your evidence, build your own case, and then you certainly let the police know what you're doing. But for them to have a camera and get set up, they've got to have Will's approval to have enough activity someplace to get that. We don't. We can't point a camera right in at somebody's house. And I'm not giving legal advice, but there's certain places like where I'm starting to cover from the back of my building for graffiti. It's going to take a little wider cast on things and take into as much information that I can get, and I'm going to be watching that and trying to accumulate evidence, and then I'm going to try to work on behalf. And you can bet when they need somebody to testify, I'm going to be pointing fingers at somebody. I'm sick and tired of these people. And where this all comes from, if you guys haven't put 2 and 2 together, whether you're a believer in God or not, it came back when they told us to stop whipping our children. And now we got a bunch of kids or grown-up adults that need whipped. And they're taking the laws away from us, because all they've got, they don't have anything. All they've got is their freedom. You take away that for a year. What's it worth? Not much. Not much, and then they're back out doing their stuff again. So it's a ridiculous, this world, and I think everybody's seen it, particularly believers, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out we're going downhill. And yeah, maybe the governments are saving money, but they're giving it away to somebody. Maybe probably the drug abusers is drawing some kind of welfare check out there anyway. So
Randall.
It's just I'm telling
okay,
you,
that's over the 1 minute. Okay.
All right.
Wrap it up.
But I want to have my 2 cents worth in there, because there was a disconnect from what you guys knew in law enforcement and you knew at the DA's office and what we knew in the public. So this is a really, really good meeting. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to explain it, but that was a wake-up call for me, because I didn't have a clue until this thing started going south on me. So thanks for everybody that came.
Randall brought up a point I want to talk about too. Fireworks. We've got lots of video. You come and you watch the video and you see like a flicker of a fire, then you see some sparks and it goes off. You don't see who lit it, and I got it right there. It is on film. Well, did you see who did it? No. Can you identify him? No, but I've got it filmed. So we've got to be able to see the person that did it, know who they are, at least be able to point them out to us, and then be willing to testify in court. So remember that. So that's one of the biggest problems we've seen with the fireworks. We got lots of real dark video with a flicker of a lighter and some sparks going off, but you never see that person.
That they're wearing a mask, they're wearing this and that.
Yeah.
Anyone else have questions for Todd? Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.